You're going to be able to use in the next 7 minutes what I teach you anytime you need to differentiate your business, you need to differentiate a book, you need to write a speech, you need to differentiate a proposal so it stands out from all the other proposals or so. Anytime you're creating a product, a service, I want you using this next technique that you'll learn in the next 7 minutes. We're here to talk about creating an irresistible idea for you and your business. And that's because you, me, and everyone we know walk down the street all day long, making snap judgments about everything we see based on almost no information. You don't want to be this ambiguous thing because you don't want to force them to make meaning out of your own life. You've got to make the meaning, right? To quote Alan, you've got to make the meaning and you present the meaning to them. Like, this is what I am. Whether you like it or not, this is what I am. When you put too many ideas out there, they don't know how to judge you. And they won't judge you, they'll just ignore you. People don't want to deal with a business that seems like an apple tree growing oranges. They want to deal with an apple tree growing apples, that you're doing what you were put on earth to do. And so your backstory, which you tell on your website, on your homepage, a video of you speaking, in your speeches, in your pitches, we'll talk more about this after, how to use it. But use it everywhere to set context for your work. It's an amazing technique. Let me tell you a couple of backstories, and I'll give you some tips on how to come up with your own backstory. So over 10 years ago, a man called me named Bill Treasurer. And Bill said, Mark, I'm a management consultant. I do leadership development and team building workshops. Unfortunately, 300,000 other consultants do exactly what it is I do. So when I go into an organization trying to win that organization's business, I always go in hat in hand, kind of hanging my head, because I have no real way of standing out from those other 300,000 consultants. And even when I win the organization's business, and I occasionally win their business, they always get me way, way down on price, because I have no way of hanging on to any value I had established in their eyes. He said, a top week for me, a week I absolutely pray for, is $1,800. He said, I have a wife, I have kids, I can't keep going on this way, I need your help. So Bill hired me. I interviewed Bill, I interviewed his clients, I interviewed his colleagues, and I discovered something interesting. Bill Treasurer, before he was a management consultant, was a professional high diver in theme parks. He would climb up, he would climb up a 9-story high radio tower. That's a ladder standing all by itself with nothing around it, 9 stories high. Imagine climbing up a ladder that's 9 stories high with nothing around it. When he got to the top of the 9-story high ladder, he wasn't finished yet. He would then spray his body with gasoline. He would light a match. He would light himself on fire, and then he would dive 9 stories into water. Over the course of 10 years, he did that 1,500 times. He was so good at being Captain Inferno that the theme park he worked for named him the captain of an entire team of Captain Infernos that went up and down the East Coast of the United States performing this gig. But the most interesting thing about Bill Treasurer, he was and still is afraid of, yes. Some people say fire, and trust me, he's afraid of fire as I am, anyone is. But he was terrified of heights. So imagine, normal heights. Imagine him in a 9-story high, ladder by himself. And a thin ladder, it wasn't like some giant expansive thing. So I took the idea that Bill did what he had to do despite his fear. And I married it to the fact he does leadership development and team building workshops. And we made his company Giant Leap Consulting. They build courage in organizations. They help leaders and their employees take the risks they know they should be taking, but aren't. So all of Bill's workshops, all of his keynotes, all of his consulting, all of his coaching started to revolve around ways of driving fear out of the workplace, to quote W. Edwards Deming, so that people could take the most significant risks they had to achieve their top goals. We not only took Bill's backstory and led with it, but I looked at the backstory and I said, what is this backstory really about? Because he was selling management consulting. And I said, he said, this is the story that substantiates what it is I do. And I'm saying, yeah, it's not really about leading. You're not really leading. You're not building a team. You're not doing any of these things. What's this story really about? Oh, it's about building courage. He was not about that. That's not what he was selling before. I said, no, you're a courage builder. Your whole business, you still deal with management and team building and all that stuff. But what you do is build courage in them for the risks that they need to take but aren't. So you need to be about courage building. So what happened for Bill because of this idea, the fact that we led with his backstory, but we changed what his business was about based on the irresistible idea in his backstory. So I told you a week he used to pray for was $1,800. He's now $1 million a year guy. He's booked months in advance. You have to book way early with him. And he's written several books on leadership where courage is at the core of every one of them. Now, I sometimes tell people that story. That's his backstory. And they say to me, Mark, that's a very dramatic backstory, but I've never lit myself on fire. And I go, what? You're kidding me, right? And they say, Mark, I've never climbed up and jumped off a 9-story high ladder. Where would you get that? Like Home Depot or something like that? Where would you get a 9-story? And what it is they're trying to tell me is that, yeah, Bill's story is very dramatic, but they may have a backstory, and we all have many backstories. We all have many backstories. It just depends which backstory that you choose to lead with, right? It's a fiction to think you have one backstory. But, does my backstory have to be a light yourself on fire backstory? And it's no, your backstory just has to show that you were put on earth to do the work you do, that the work you're doing is so important to you that you probably know all about it and you're probably great at it. Your business is not for everyone. Your business is for a small segment of the marketplace. Now that segment might have millions of people in it or even tens of millions of people, but your business is really for people who love you the way you are and the way you do your work, that they don't want you to screw yourself up into a pretzel to be something that you're not, because you'd end up alienating them, right? They love you for the way you do work now. It's like what Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead said. Garcia said, the Grateful Dead are a lot like licorice. Most people don't like licorice, but the people who like licorice really like licorice. So you, my friends, are licorice, and your irresistible differentiated idea is there to attract the licorice lovers out there, the people who love you for who you are. You lead with your irresistible idea, and you don't back down from it. Thank you so much.